Hello, hello. Welcome tonight to Nexus Nights. It is December the 19th, and today we're going to be talking about Lunara, the Chinese scene, Gold League, and some thoughts on drafting. So, what's up, guys? Oh, wrong one. There we go. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey,
Hey. Hi.
How's everyone doing today?
It's a pretty good day.
I
Pretty
got to
good
play
day, though.
Heroes all day, so it was fantastic.
That does make for a good day.
Yeah, I woke up bright and early at like 2 p.m. and I've just been
That's okay. That's what I totally did too. I walk downstairs. I'm like, it's a good morning. Wait, it's 2. Damn.
I was up at 6:30. Get on my level.
Congrats.
Hmm.
All right. I am having super duper issues today because I only have one monitor, so this is difficult for me to juggle everything on one monitor. I need like 3. I will do my best.
Deal.
So, first off, let's talk about the Nexus Nights skin contest. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, Christine, and what you think about what's been going on so far?
All right, so basically, in conjunction with the launch of our new landing page, teamliquid.com/heroes, and the
.net.
Nexus.
.net.
Is it .net?
Yes, teamliquid.net.
Sorry, thank you. I was like, that's why I kind of paused for a second. I'm like, this isn't right, but I'm gonna keep going. Okay, .net/heroes, and Nexus Nights podcast launching. We launched a skin contest as well, and essentially, it was skin for skin. So if you submitted a skin design that was more than just a random, this looks okay right now. We will be giving you a skin in return, and it's one of 5 skins, and it's all on our landing. Actually, I believe we still have it as the main feature. Yep.
Okay. All right. We're gonna be showing off some of the top designs. Actually, let's just show off all of them because why not?
All of them.
All of them.
All right.
All right. Let me fix the stream. This is so difficult to do with only one monitor. It's unbelievable.
I believe you.
Okay, so this is what we got. First up, the first person who submitted one was Zambra, who submitted Uthiji and Murio the Hammer Bros. What do you guys think about this one? Like it? Just know?
It makes me smile.
it's very
Nostalgia plus. Yeah. There was work put in, and I solidly
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I was really impressed when I looked at it and realized like everything is like actually drawn.
Mhm.
Really impressive.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how that one turned out. I don't know, it makes me happy, and you know how much of a sucker I am for themes and color coordination, so Error Bros makes me happy.
Right. Well, there's no belt buckles, and that's a problem, but
That's true. But if they could make
very
like
small bubbles. You just can't
the
see them.
actual hammer throwing Koopas, they could make one of those for Thrall,
oh, that would be
and
sick.
that could
Yeah.
work because you
No,
could
that
put
would
a
be
belt on that.
Falstead, right? Because he throws a hammer, so
It could be,
What's that?
but then
Yeah,
it would
he
have
just
to be
needs a-
flying. Falstad
Well,
would be like, you know, the
it'd
little
be
minions that have
the
camera.
Hammer Brother on one of the flying turtles, right?
That would that's terrifying.
Solid,
That is so
solid.
cool and so terrifying. I love it.
All right. What about One Punch Karazim? I feel like this is like some kind of like Marvel character or something like that. I don't know, honestly. I don't know where this theme comes from. Anyone?
It looks like an anime, but
It is
Okay.
an anime.
And it's an anime?
Yeah.
Yeah, One Punch is an anime.
Okay.
Or One Punch Man, I should say. Or I think they're making it into an anime, or it's already an anime, but I know it's for sure a webcomic rather.
Okay.
So yeah, One Punch Man is a thing. In this case,
Okay.
it's One Punch Karazim.
I
So I can
suppose it
appreciate.
fits.
I can definitely appreciate the the suitability of it.
If you notice, he has a belt buckle.
He does, so that just
he
makes it even
does.
better.
So we know he's manly.
And it's not even a skin tight suit. It's close,
Are-
but not quite. So I can appreciate that as well.
Are we judging these purely on belt buckle size? Because And just for
there's
anyone tuning in who's
belt buckles
confused
running
by
joke.
this, you'll notice that Blizzard likes very large belt buckles on all of their skins. And we
All
talk
the-
about that a lot because we
All the
get
tankiest ones for
all the
sure have
tankiest.
bigger belt buckles.
Cares name
And if-
confirmed.
All right. Next one up is my little thing, which was Tyrolol. And it's
So,
just
okay, I have to ask, did you
Okay.
just block off the text on the top with the red and blue? Or did you mean something by that?
okay. So that's so the idea
I get
is
it.
it's
I
it's
get
when
it.
Tyrael steals boss with Holy Ground. So he jumps in, and that's the little marker for the boss. Yeah.
Okay,
I got inspiration because Toucher was talking about before the 4K Heroes show match. He's talking about how funny it would be if Blizzard made a skin that had Tyrael like that. So I thought it was funny, and I just decided to
Okay.
make it.
Yeah, because I didn't quite clue into them. Like, is he covering text? Like, what is going on? That
No.
makes a lot more sense. Okay.
What?
Yeah. Okay, then that makes me happy. Okay, that is the best. Okay.
Next is Super Almost Demon Illidan or Sad Illidan. I don't know how I feel about that.
Though?
I would just call him
Anyone
SSJ
Yeah.
Illidan. I don't understand.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, why Sad Illidan? I don't understand.
SSG, Super Saiyan Gul'dan. Oh man, if they come out with a Gul'dan hero, skin, coin, done. Okay. But no, I like it. And the idea of what the effects would be as it pertains to metamorphosis, really interesting to
that's
think
true.
about.
Yeah, he would look super cool.
I mean, you could do the same thing for the hunt too, like him charging after people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just
Either
gets like
one.
the beautiful golden cloud around him as he's
It would
flying through the air.
take him
Oh.
about 10 seconds to like yell it.
No, his
Charge
mount,
Ah!
he's got a special mount, and he's gonna have the cloud nimbus.
You are not prepared.
Bad time to take a drink.
Next is Dead Game Leoric. I know Shiro doesn't like this, but I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
I
It was
still think the
funny.
belt buckle should have been like Heroes of New Earth.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
No, the
That's
belt
like-
buckle should be Heroes of the Storm because whenever you call things dead games, you always have to do it way early before.
Oh,
It's actually
no,
right?
no, we're not. We don't want the game to
Rip our
die, though. That's the
careers.
point. We don't want this game to rip. Okay.
It can't be a good game until someone calls it a dead game. That's like the rule.
Is it that the Dead Game skin made for a Blizzard game includes 2 Blizzard games?
No, not at all. I think totally makes sense.
Maybe a Lost Vikings belt buckle?
Where did Dead Game actually start with StarCraft 2, or did that start way before? I'm curious.
It got popularized. I'm sure people called games Dead Games beforehand, but StarCraft 2 was like the original Dead Game.
Okay.
Sorry,
Solid,
QBB.
solid. All right, next we're gonna skip the Thrall Rection skin
Yep.
because that's not appropriate.
I'm good with that.
Technically, Zambrod, like none of these actually count because he already did one, but he did the Shrek skin, which was kind of funny. It's just like Thrall with the Shrek face screaming. I like it.
Yeah.
If only he
Um,
could ride donkey as a man.
Well, he's the one that did. I don't know. Like, just double checking that you guys are aware. He's the one that did the Hammer Bros skin.
Right.
So,
Right. So those are
just
redundant
kinda
extra
troll
ones.
yeah.
He
Like
just
we
wants
know
points.
he's capable of greatness, and then he did those.
And then control action. Anyway,
And then Thrall happened to him. Next is Grand Slam Leoric.
which actually is a very viable skin, I think.
I think that would
Yeah.
totally be pretty cool.
Yeah.
He said
It
March of the Black
doesn't-
King could be like strike
Yeah.
1, strike 2, strike 3, you're out.
Shouldn't
If
we
you
do
gotta
it for a
count,
game
like,
that
an
people
action
enjoy
figure,
though,
but
like
no.
soccer?
Oh,
Ouch. Ouch.
But yeah, like
I do-
it's cool to me because it's not like a copyright infringement either. So it's an actual viable idea. Whereas things
Yeah, I
like the Hammer Bros and One Punch
Yeah.
Man,
yeah, that's
they're
true.
good.
This is probably the skin that would most likely actually make it in the game.
Yeah.
Well, I
that's
mean
true.
they're doing the Darth Vader skin for him, so
Well, that's
it's not
sick.
like these
Yeah,
things stop
but
them.
as everything is Star Wars right now.
Yeah. And
Everything
then,
is Star Wars right now. So I'm surprised. Like even in World of Warcraft, there were guards in the capital cities that had lightsabers. Fun fact. But they were like
Um,
flaming swords basically, but they were lightsabers.
So I actually think the next skin could also potentially, like if this were like a real contest, it could potentially make it into the game. It's the Riot Police Johanna.
This is a real contest. I like this one a lot too, but that's because I'm a huge fan of Johanna.
Can you elaborate on that
What's
first
that?
statement?
This is a real contest. You shouldn't put down your own contests. Right?
Okay, fair enough.
What's up
I
with
just-
that?
I'm just saying if it were like a contest like sponsored by Blizz Heroes of the Storm, then it'd be
Yeah.
great.
And what's sad is that at this point in time we can't hold one like that just because they're so, I don't want to say they're backlogged, but they plan weeks and months in advance, so they just
Yeah.
don't have time to do any of these, which
But
is
we
a
can
shame
tweet-
because some of them are really good ideas.
I mean, it's
We
can
it's
tweet
it's a
winners and
potential
test them
thing
out.
that like in the
Yeah,
future
I-
skin contests like this could come up.
Yeah.
I know that Team Liquid partnered with Blizzard during StarCraft 2 to do the map contests, and those maps got released in the map pool for everyone to play. So there's potential that in the future something like this could potentially happen.
I hope so.
Those are all
I'm
super
kind of
potential
gunning
things.
for it. I want it, but
I'm a
Yeah,
little
no,
sad
I
about the
agree.
helicopter drop instead of falling sword because I would never get to see it because who takes falling sword?
Exactly. I can't remember who was it. Was it Solid Jake? He said that like he believed wholeheartedly that Falling Sword was actually marginally better than Blessed Shield. Someone said that.
What?
I can't remember.
What? I don't even know what you would use it for. It just seems so
It
inconsequential.
works the same way, just not as well. It just gives them like
Yeah.
a nice like 5-second window of opportunity to move instead of being instant.
it's funny. The only Heroes League game I've ever played with a Joanna that got Falling Sword, it was a misclick, and the guy was like, "Well, fuck it, like let's just do this." Pardon my language, and we won.
Oh,
So
we did,
I mean,
we played one time with
100% win rate.
Remember, kids, anything can happen in Hero League.
who did we play with?
It's
We
true.
played with some pro one time. Me and you played with a pro who went Johanna with Falling Sword.
I think that was the game.
Was it? Did he
That's
say it was a
exactly-
misclick?
Yeah, he said it
Oh.
was a misclick.
Whatever. I mean, he still destroyed everything with it. It's amazing. All right, so next we have Nova Nova, and this is just a gnome version of Nova. I like it a lot.
I love
Adorable.
So
But I love that entire like aesthetic that's going on with the gun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is so good. This is like contest
you at-
winner right here.
Are you actually pulling these up on the stream, or are we just talking about things people can't see?
They can see it right now.
Okay.
It's up on my
Um,
screen, and I'm previewing that.
I actually have the luxury of working with Handclaw, and I adore him. He does little things like this on the side, and he's done a bunch of little graphics. I totally recommend seeing if he's posted any more on Twitter, because he's posted a few to Blizz Planets that chat, and I love them. He started making this skin. I'm like, hold on to this idea. Give me a month. So he was
Right.
like, okay. And I was like, all right, now finish it. And he did, and I'm so happy he did. Like, it
It's
looks
so
so
good.
good. And he did the character model too, if I recall correctly. So like as an actual working concept. So I would love to see this in game, and I would love to see him get credit for it. This is one of those times where I wish that we did have that authority to say your skin's gonna go in game. Because it's so well done.
Can you imagine though? Can you imagine the nightmare of trying to spot her riding on Wonder Billy? Like if she's like
Right.
an extra like 4 feet shorter, plus she's on Wonder Billy, like you just never see her.
That's
Like,
why her
the
gun
blur
is
would
so,
be non-existent.
that's the
And just
idea.
imagine what a like grayscale, almost noir colored hero in Heroes would look like. It'd be
Okay,
so
I getcha.
fantastic. I like it.
All right.
Fail. But anyway.
So that one's the one I already know. But next is Artanis the Unemployed, My Life for Hire.
I like puns.
Artanix to do. I don't know what that means. I hope someone gets that. Question mark. Anyone?
What's that?
Not me.
It says his name is Artanis the Unemployed, aka Artanix to do. And does that mean anything to anyone? Is that like an inside joke with himself?
I don't know. I don't
Alright.
understand it.
Nobody
That's all I know.
knows. Alright. But
But
that one's
that's okay. I appreciate it that it was done at work, and I love plays on words. I love puns, so it already has my
My
vote.
life for hire. Like it.
You know,
Seb, we
until you
have-
said "my life for hire," I did not get the joke there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's like the icing on the cake.
It's beautiful, yeah. Okay, next is Muerta Murky. Which, the more I look at the skin, the more I like it. It's just
It's
beautiful. Throws burritos and stuff. I love that he has a mustache too. Oh my gosh, it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful skin.
Yes. What would his egg be though?
Um,
I remember
Just the
asking
hat
this in
lying on
chat.
the ground.
it's just a hat. I'd be okay
feel
with
like
that, like a
it's really
gigantic sombrero.
It's just a
I feel like
gigantic
it should be
sombrero, and when he
Vodka.
spawns, he like stands up, and then he puts the sombrero on the ground.
What'd you say,
Then
Christine?
he wouldn't be wearing it anymore. I said
No,
that
he
it
has
should be
another
like a maraca.
Maraca?
Maracas.
Interesting.
And they'd shake and then he'd spawn.
Okay, I can see
I
that.
feel like I don't know. That's my best idea.
I mean, the other one was just like a Mexican restaurant or something.
Yeah. I don't think that would be sick.
Yeah, yeah. Next up, we have Chogalia, which I actually really love too. Like, I don't. It's just. It seems so like ridiculous. I love it.
I feel like it's a pun on my name.
Chogalia, maybe.
Chogalia.
Chogalia.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No. I like that the fingernails are painted. That's a nice touch. I'm glad that was on board.
And of course, the most important thing about this skin is if you'll notice, there's a very large belt buckle.
Yes.
So
Very- Clearly the
It's
winner.
Perfect.
perfect accessories.
Speaking of perfect accessories, I don't know if you can. Well, I guess depending on the outfit, you could consider socks accessories.
I'm not sure they're considered accessories.
Depends
But
on where
if
you
you're
wear
wearing
them.
like cute stockings with like kitty ears and stuff on them, they become accessories.
But if you're like Red Hot Chili Peppers, they could also be accessories.
Fair enough. All right. So next we have the Lost Socks by Garbles, and this is just the 3 socks. They notice that they don't have faces or eyes because they are not being controlled, much like most of the people in Hero League control their Vikings. And their ultimate
Your
form
socks.
is. Sorry, the ultimate form is they go into this angry washing machine dryer behind them that I guess spins and does something.
So I think this is probably like the most creative idea in the thread.
Love it.
Like
Yeah, I
I
think
personally
so.
love it.
Yeah.
And it took John a second to sort of understand the concept behind this. So I'll explain it quickly. Socks get
Alright.
lost in dryers. This is
I-
a universally known fact.
Just
I've never had this
Google-
problem.
Just Google "do dryers eat socks" and you'll find Yahoo answer threads.
The answer, like, full answer, yes.
Explaining that that's not actually what happens.
That's
it
not
is-
actually what happens. Is this like urban legend? Like my washing machine, my dryer ate my socks. Well, no,
Apparently
it
there's
just they didn't get eaten. They just got sucked into it and destroyed.
There's a lot of people out there who think that dryer lint is really just a disintegrated sock. That
I respect that idea. That is novel, sir.
All right, and then next we have 2D Vikings, and then next we have
Sorry,
2D Vikings is a pretty cool idea. I understand that it's kind of impossible for you to actually bring this to life on a 2D medium. But-
why not?
Well, because it doesn't get the full point across. Like, oh yeah, let's have
It's too 2D.
like literally you're
I-
just copy pasting like the Vikings in a 2D.
Right.
Like even a 3D, like a quote unquote 3D picture of the Vikings would still be 2D, and it's difficult. I understand. Next, we have a bunch of suggestions from GhostCom. First of all, he has Gladiator Zeratul. I think it's pretty straightforward. I like the idea.
I do.
I think that'd be a
It
solid
was
skin.
really- yeah. And if you notice, he's got 3 belt buckles.
Oh!
Oh,
Next is Pac-Man Vikings, where they're just the ghosts searching for.
Which is adorable.
I like it.
That
I
is
don't
so
see how that would like actually work all that well, but I like it nonetheless.
And then when they turn it into the
Go on.
longboat, it can be the 4th one, Sue.
Yeah.
They just turn in.
I would only be okay with this as a skin if when they ulted, it would actually be like waka 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 as it shot out fireballs.
that would be amazing.
That would be pretty cool.
Instead of playing the Viking song, it just goes Waka. That'd be good.
Waka, waka, waka. All right, and the third one is Sonya in Justice League, and I guess that's.
You tell me you know who that is.
I know who that is.
You know what that reminds
I
me
don't,
of?
I don't know who that is.
Xena.
Aw.
It reminds me of Xena.
Oh, it's
That's what it
Xena?
reminds-
Not Xena.
No, I know it's not. I know it. But
Oh.
I'm saying that actually, like, that's what it reminds me of most when I look at it. Just like,
Okay,
if I didn't actually read the caption.
I'd be okay with the Xena. When she does
It
the leap,
reminds-
she's like, ay, 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 ay,
She pretty much
Exactly
does that.
like
She's
that.
got the yell down. It's just a little different.
ay, ay.
But I like that too.
All right, I think that's every. Yeah, the rest of the thread is just me talking about socks and how I've never.
Okay,
All
but here's my
right.
question. Between those last
Hmm?
3, because they're all
Okay.
from the same person, which of his submissions do you like the most?
Gladiator Zeratul.
Gladiators Airtool, I think.
Gladiators
That's what I go
Airtool.
for.
Boom.
All right. Okay, moving forward, because we definitely spent a lot, way
Okay,
too much
but
time
they're
on
really
this.
good.
They are. They're excellent. They're excellent.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that we had any extras submitted via Twitter that weren't submitted via the forums, right?
No, I posted the Nova Nova one. That was pretty much the only one.
Yeah.
So
Just be
moving
there
clear,
was-
there's one winner or everyone gets a skin?
everyone
Not
who submitted
necessarily
a quality skin.
Everyone
It's a
deemed
skin
worthy
return.
gets a skin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything that makes us either laugh or like that is like, oh, you know what, that could actually work. Pretty much gets one.
Can we send those skins out tomorrow or?
Yep, I can definitely get on that.
Okay, all right.
I had most people submit which skin they wanted via the forums already, so we should have a
Okay.
pretty good handle on that.
Okay. All right, moving onwards. We spent way too long there, but that's all good. Let's talk about the Lunara patch. So the Lunara patch happened earlier this week, and along with the introduction of Lunara, we also had the Winter Veil celebration then, as well as some minor balance changes. The Winter Veil celebration. What do you think about all the new mounts and skins? Anyone?
They're pretty
I'm
great
more than
in
one.
general.
Yeah, I love
The
all the
C9
Christmas
mount is
skins.
poopy.
What?
I'm sorry, I have
What?
to say it. The C9 mount is like
It's a little
it
disappointing.
gives
I
me
agree.
it gives me motion sickness to watch its trail. Like it's disappointing that it's not even like a cloud.
Oh.
Like
Yeah, I think they just
So-
wanted to generalize
It
it so they
feels
can do
a
that in
little
the
bit-
future.
uncreative. It's just like they reskinned the coin and
Yeah.
called it a day.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Well, they've been doing that with a lot of mounts, right? Like they're trying to get the most value out of their art assets. So the Vulture mount is turning into the space vehicle that Space Leoric is going to drive, and the doubloon mount is the C9 mount.
Hexagon.
and,
It's a Nexagon.
whatever. Which I'm fine with. I like it. I think it looks sharp, and I think the price point is really good because it's a 5,000 gold
Price
mount
point
that
is
people can
good.
buy,
Yeah.
and
I give you
5,000
that.
gold
Price point is good.
is a lot, but it's good for someone starting out in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I expected something more exciting, and that's just kind of like, oh, it's just like a coin.
It's your world champions for the first official season of your game.
Like League of Legends, like they got like there's like 5 skins that go into the game, like SKT1 skins, and like they're all like really cool looking skins. This one, it's just like, oh yeah, we just reskinned the doubloon. You know,
I
there's
actually
like,
told
like a
Equinox
seizure-inducing trail.
to use that mount anymore. Yeah, can't confirm. Is seizure-inducing. 100%.
And just think, in pro games, Cloud9 is the only team that can actually have their own mount that they play in the pro game. Like, this is going to turn into kind of like the Super Bowl ring, right? Like, only teams that have won BlizzCons can actually ride mounts with their names on them.
So
That's
is it BM to like ride like the C9 Mexigon like against C9?
in the finals against C9. Right, C9 tonight.
It's like walk all over their base on their coins, be like, what?
Yeah, because then like when you're killing their core, just everyone mounts up. Yeah, that's
Right.
And runs in circles like we do at the start of the game. Yeah. Like it.
I did also I really like the Sugar Plum Sylvanas. I think that skin is amazing. It's probably
can't
one of the
wait.
best skins they've come out with so far.
I can't wait to see the cosplay versions of that. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I
gonna be
love her hair though. Her hair is like so swoopy on that skin too.
sound effect for added.
If you could see me, I know you guys can't see me, but like
You did
but
the
I'm doing the motion. I'm doing the motion.
I think both of their like Stitches and Sylvanas got amazing skins. That
Yeah.
Stitches skin is wonderful.
It's ridiculous.
Candy
but-
cane Huck is too cute. Oh, it's so good.
And the blue Stitches skin combined with the Cloud9 coin is really blue. It's just a lot of blue.
The blue is real.
All right, so and then the other big thing is Lunara. So we've had a couple days to play Lunara. What do you guys think about Lunara so far?
I really like her once I got a build going for her and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. She can dish out a lot of damage if people let you. Now the downside of that is if they have any kind of dive or an Illidan hunts you or like any kind of burst, like you just die. But she's really fun to play.
You can't see me, but I danced to that entire part after you said Illidan. I'm so very happy whenever Illidan gets any kind of credit because I love him. But yeah, I think the biggest downside to Lunara right now is that she's really squishy. Like she's got such a short range, and honestly, she reminds me a lot of like. Obviously, these aren't the same realms at all, but she reminds me a lot of Medic on release, where Medic, if you leave Medic alone and don't do anything to Medic, she'll completely destroy the other team, right? Because if you just focus on whoever the Medic's healing, then that person will just never, ever die, right? But if you just focus the Medic for like 1 second, she just pops and dies. And that's kind of how Lunara is. If you leave Lunara alone, she'll do a bunch of damage and she'll destroy everything. But if you like, all it takes is just someone walking over and blocking her down for a minute to kill her, and she's gone.
That's a bit of the catch, though. Sorry.
I mean, that's a complicated thing to accomplish too, though, because Lunara is. I've been using her to flank engagements a lot, and so you don't necessarily show yourself until people have already picked their targets and they're committed a little bit, and then you come in and you're hitting them kind of from behind, and I don't know, it works really well because if they turn around and face you, then your team gets to hit them for free a lot. She definitely has some power spikes though. Like until level 7, she's a little light on damage, which is when I usually take Wild Vigor, the one that gives her crits whenever she applies her W key.
Right.
And then at level 16, when you can take that range increase, suddenly you can actually participate in team fights without being super vulnerable because you can actually attack from really far away.
Unless you just get sniped by Nova or hunted by Illidan. Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Illidan is definitely a counter to him, or her rather, but I don't necessarily think that she's underpowered or too squishy, given the talent she has to survive. I mean, she's got a version of what Cleanse should have been changed to. And her greater spell shield, someone earlier was saying that Nova totally wrecks her, but between her leaps and between greater spell shield, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, triple tap is great and all, but I mean, you've got bigger problems if you're letting a Nova just kind of triple tap and get every single hit off without any healing or interjection by your team. And the fact that she can finish casting it. But like in general, I think that she's pretty decently balanced. I mean, people are complaining about how squishy she is. I don't really see it as a problem because she has so much mobility within a fight. And it's interesting that you brought up Medic, because I find so far some of the best Lunaras have been played alongside a Medic. So they just pocket heal, and she takes a lot of damage, but it heals quickly enough that it doesn't matter. The only real issue right now is that at least her initial auto attacks are rather clunky. If you've played League of Legends and if you've played Callista, then you don't have as big a problem adjusting to it. But especially for a newer player, and I mean in general a little bit, even if you do have that practice on League of Legends character that's somewhat similar, her auto attacks could use a little bit of tweaking. I don't know if it's just how they interact with movement that needs to be changed, or
I can tell
if
you
it's
exactly
the
what
auto
it
attack
is.
itself. Let's hear it.
So what it is exactly is she can only attack at the bottom of her hop. So if she's in mid hop, she actually can't attack. So the big problem is that if her cooldown for her basic attack is actually a little bit longer than it takes for her to hop. So if you hop once and then I guess the idea is you have to base it off of her hops when to attack rather than her actual cooldown, which is really not
Does
normal.
that kind of nullify invigorating spores a bit if you're not used to her, or really in general?
It just means that you have
just
to
a-
kind of stand still for a second. Right?
Well, for 6 seconds.
Well, not for the
but-
full 6 seconds, but like,
No.
just it's really weird the way it works, and it makes it so that you are not basing her kiting off of her actual attack speed, which is really strange.
Yeah.
And
I mean, fair warning, what I'm saying is taken mostly from watching people play and feedback I've gotten. I haven't played her much myself, which is why something like that's really valuable. That sucks. I think that needs to change, because I mean,
yeah, they need
just
to fix
looking at
that.
this now, that makes me I wouldn't want to pick invigorating spores ever because of that, because you couldn't move. But
Yeah.
anyway,
The way
outside of that minor problem, sorry, I just have one more point. Outside of that minor problem, I like that she's got versatility in builds. I like that she's got 2 different play styles that you can really go for. More than that, technically 3, but I'm not going to be nitpicky. I love that she's got the talent she does that are so reminiscent of her Warcraft 3 background. And I think that she was a really well done hero, minus the fact that she didn't have a video like the last couple. That makes me sad. Otherwise, I like her.
It is unfortunate. What do you think about her, Valve?
Well, I think, first of all, she's one of the best talent designed heroes that we've seen in a long time. We were talking about her talents for a good hour there, and like we couldn't agree on hardly anything because everything is so good. And I think that's a good step in their balanced direction in designing new heroes. And the other thing is that both her ults are also really good. Most of the time, it's like you got one good ult and then one that's just never picked. Possession.
They're gonna change position.
And
hope they
announced
change
it.
it.
They're changing it. Sorry.
yeah, and it's good that they're finally doing that, because both of the ults are viable. I mean, I think Thornwood Vine is going to be a little bit ahead now, especially in pro players' perspective, just because Leaping Strike leaves you so vulnerable. Even though it does more damage single target and stuff, it is better for dueling, but that doesn't happen very often. So most of the time, I think the poke and the long range applying crippling spores is just too powerful to take Leaping Strike instead, even though Leaping Strike is some of the most fun things you can do. It just gets you into too much trouble, too much.
True, and now that people have discovered that it like does the unstoppable too, that's actually really cool, because you can do weird stuff like negating Butcher's charge or Illidan's Hunt you can negate the stun at least. It's pretty cool.
Weirdly, Thornwood Vine is also an escape, because if you use it in conjunction with Crippling Spores while you're running away, your movement speed bonus and the slow that you can apply by combining it with that just lets you escape really easily.
Yeah, that's true.
It's also
so
a
it's
pain in the
actually
butt for invisible heroes.
Yeah, but it's easier to escape with it than Leaping Strike, which is weird because when I first read the abilities, I thought Leaping Strike would be the more mobile and
Well, it
easier to
helps
dodge
you in
people.
some situation. Like if you get like entombed, like Leaping Strike is your only
That's
way
true.
out of that, right? And
That's
so,
true.
Very
That's
true.
if you get stuck like up against a wall
Gazebo wall.
somewhere, yeah, or yeah, the gazebo wall, something like that.
Yeah. The other thing though is like with stealth characters, Leaping Strike, I don't think like I tried that at first to counter a Nova with Greater Spell Shield, and I was like, oh, I'll just keep jumping around her and she can't hit snipe. That didn't really work very well because I couldn't break her out of stealth. Thornwood Vine is your only real option to break him out of stealth because good luck hitting a stealthy with your Q. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
going to happen.
That's rough.
So I don't think Leaping Strike's viable too much against Nova, even though I really wanted it to be.
Natural perspective makes it a lot better, but
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you can't reveal her in the first place, it's problematic for sure.
Yeah,
I like
true.
natural.
exactly.
We need to move on, but I like natural perspective as a skill quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's
probably
good.
one of the more interesting reveal skills that they've come out with in a new character in quite a while.
Right. So moving on, let's talk about Gold League a little bit. I know you guys basically didn't watch any of Gold League. I watched all of it and did all the live report stuff, which is fine. I understand that. But so I'm just gonna basically explain to you guys the Chinese meta and what's going on there. So the Chinese meta is a little bit different from what we're used to seeing in America and EU, and especially even in Korea. They have their own thing going on over there. One of the most interesting things about China is they always put a lot of emphasis on getting their tanks really early and saving their healers for last. This is something that, like, I think in America and EU we tend to focus on in the drafts. We tend to get healers or like big power picks first. Like we'll get like a Kael'thas and like an Uther first, like the big scary people. But in China, they tend to pick things like they just immediately will go for ETC or Muradin or Sonya really early on because they kind of want to build that front line and then build damage behind it. And they typically undervalue melee assassins when they do that. They much prefer having something like a Sonya or a second tank over any kind of melee assassin, which again is something that we don't really see as much in EU and America. People still enjoy playing things like Kerrigan and Butcher, stuff like that. And then I think the most notable hero that we see over there that we don't see over here is Rhaegar. Rhaegar is really big in China, and I think it's starting to slowly make its way over here, but like Rhaegar has been picked pretty consistently for like the past 2 months, even before the scaling changes. So that's basically the Chinese scene in a nutshell. The other thing that I just want to touch on is I think the Chinese teams were actually a lot better than we give them credit for. So if we look at Gold League Season 1, it had a bunch of the Koreans there. And then in Season 2, there was some kind of debacle. I don't know the exact details, but essentially the Chinese said that the Koreans couldn't attend. And I think for a lot of us, it was kind of this validation of like, oh, well, that just means the Koreans are way better and the Chinese just wanted to win because the Koreans won everything last time. But I think we're actually seeing that the Chinese are quite good. And we also saw that to some degree at WCA as well. Even though Team Liquid did really well, they still lost to OMG, and E-Star is completely on a different level right now. Have you guys watched any of the WCA games?
Just a little bit.
A little?
Mainly like MVP.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is they haven't streamed many games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the finals were really, really good. A lot of people were saying that the finals between MVP Black and eStar were really, really excellent.
Yeah,
Um,
I watched one of those games just and it was one that eStar won.
Right.
And MVP, even though they were losing and kind of a little bit badly, they were still showing up to fights incredibly well, and every fight looked really close until the very end. And it was just really fun to watch and try to think, wow, who's winning? Because it was really hard to tell a lot of the time, like way more so than any other tournament I've seen. So
I'm curious. Do you think that BlizzCon was not represented with the best teams in the world after seeing that?
I think I've got to say that, yeah, there were a lot of the good teams, but not all of them. So
Yeah.
I
I think I
at
think
the
it's a
time
shame
I
that
still
eStar
think
hasn't been able to
Cloud9.
show up.
Yeah, I still
Mm.
think Cloud9 probably would have won the whole thing, even with other
Really?
teams. But I think now, like, everything's changed pretty much.
I see.
I think something to keep in mind too when you're thinking about Cloud9 is that they are about to have some roster changes, and that's been in the works since before BlizzCon slash
Mhm.
around BlizzCon. So we're going to see some overhauls with that too. And I have a feeling it's going to come out a little bit in the way Fnatic's overhauls did, in that, like, Cloud9 is already a strong team, but if they get the right switch out and if they have the synergy as quickly as Fnatic managed to find it, it's going to be pretty good. And I think that they'll still be considered a top team. But we've never had a really solid non-EU versus NA international competition.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to say that the best teams in the world were there when most of them were from NA and EU. And
Right.
the one team from China wasn't even the actual team from China. So I think
Fair
there's
enough.
always, I don't know. And they're not even the same teams at this point, I think is the other problem too, right? Like a lot
Right.
of the players we saw in
Uh-huh.
specific teams are no longer on those teams. So it's kind of like, at this point, literally comparing apples and oranges because the teams aren't the teams anymore. But
I mean, isn't the only teams that is all together still from BlizzCon like Cognitive?
Cognitive. I
I
have
mean,
to pull it up
I can't think of any other, like
off
all
the
the
top
other
of my
EU and
head.
NA games are just EA teams. EA, wow. All the other NA and EU teams are all different. So all they had at least one member change since then. So
Yeah, I think someone I'm thinking of, but I can't. No, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I think you're right. That's more or less correct. All right. So, did you have anything else to add, mother folks?
No, I didn't watch Gold League or WCA.
All
So
right, excellent. It's unfortunate that those are just at like really weird times. I'm lucky enough to be on like a completely messed up sleep schedule, so I got to
you're on
watch
the
most of it.
esports schedule.
That's right. I go where esports are.
Respect.
So going back to what I was talking about in terms of the way that the Chinese pick and ban, I just want for us to go ahead and talk about drafting and how drafting works, how we approach drafting, and how teams put together compositions that work in their favor, and how do they do that via picking in the draft screen. So first of all, the draft framework. We see this a lot in, I think, in forums and on Unet and stuff like that, where people are like, "Oh, we need this. We need a tank now, or like
Right.
we need like a real support, etc., etc." So, what do you guys think like the correct framework for a team or composition should be?
Bolivar, what do you think?
well, I think first of all, I know it has happened sometimes, and just because it happens sometimes and it works doesn't mean it's always right. But I think you need a healer, first of all. Like, just without one, you are at a disadvantage. I don't care how many games you've won without a healer, you're at a disadvantage. And second of all, like, I think you do need a strong front line. I think that is the most important thing, is you got too many teams that kind of get a bunch of high damage and ranged assassins and a support, and then like one solo tank. And I don't think that works very well. I think you need a good front line as the solid base.
Okay.
So at least one warrior, if not two, and a good melee assassin, or like a melee support like Karazim or something.
Okay. Other Fox, do you
Okay.
have any ideas?
Yeah.
When I think about team compositions, I think about there being a primary tank, healer, and assassin, and then the other two roles you kind of can flex in terms of what you want to emphasize in the team composition. There was a time when we were emphasizing 3 assassins, a healer, and a tank, and that was good enough. But as the meta shifts, different compositions will be right. And I agree with Oliver that having a really strong front line and a good damage dealer in the back is really important right now.
Okay. Dean?
So minimum 1 healer, even if that healer is Tronda or Tassadar. No more than 2 is my rule of thumb. I can't really think of anything, and Avatar does not count as a healer. Throwing that one out there right now. I don't
Do you really
care
think
that characters can heal you. I
Do you really think
genuinely
Tassadar
believe.
can be a solo?
No, I'm just saying like
Okay,
maybe.
maybe.
Because he
At
could
the very
you could
least.
have like a Tassadar Tronda on a team, and depending on the composition who you're against, that can work. So that's why I throw it out there, but I don't see him as solo. I don't really like or solo heal Tronda either. It's very niche, and people consider it like totally acceptable in every situation. It's not, guys. Please don't do that to your Tronda. Definitely at least one tankier hero. Whether it's an actual tank like Muradin or Johanna, or it's like a pseudo tank that does damage. Sonya, for instance, just because she can heal up and take a beating but give one too. You need something there. And if you choose squishies the rest of the way, you are going to die. So there needs to be at least one healer. There needs to be at least one anything. Even when you look at the murky composition C9 had, they still had a Leoric. They still had a tank. So like there needs to be one of those.
Right.
And yeah.
What I always find interesting is like when you look at the backline, when you look at who your damage dealers are, there's always this question of like, is a specialist required for your composition? Can you go triple assassin? You go like double tank, double assassin healer? Where do specialists fit in? I wonder. Like, is double specialist okay?
Yep.
So I think it all. I think it all comes down to like you got to have a balance in team fights, soloing like one-on-one, and wave clearing. Like if you don't have a balance in that, then your composition's wrong. The specialists, depending on what you get, like if you get a Sylvanas or a Zagara, it's like those bring some crazy wave clear and some good sustained damage in team fights and can one-on-one people. So it's like they're the best specialists for that reason. They can bring everything to the fight. But if you have like an Asmodan, you got to make sure that you got somebody who can carry extra weight in a team fight, because an Asmodan early game cannot do that. So you just got to kind of make sure that you balance things out.
Okay. Cool. Any other thoughts on that?
Absolutely. You can have 2 specialists or 3 assassins. You just need to be cognizant of what the other team has, and if you're going to do something like 3 assassins, or in general, I'm just going to say 3 squishies, how well can they get through your front line, and can your healer sustain it? Okay. So I know that often we see the beautiful combo of Kerrigan and Uther, and you can have 2 squishies on top of that, and it'll be just fine, because your Kerrigan just wreaks hell with Uther's ult. So heroic rather. So it works. But if you don't have any of that sort of utility and SOS, like saving grace, you're not going to be able to pull it off. So just be aware of how squishy your team is, and depending on where you are in the draft phases, be aware of what the other team has picked up. And if you can pull it off, then go for it. But if it's gonna be a recipe for disaster, if you're gonna be too squishy, or if you're gonna be too vulnerable, or if you don't think that you'll ever be safe in lane, don't do it.
All right. So, sorry. Go ahead, Mother Fox.
I was going to say the other thing that specialists tend to not be that great at doing is finalizing kills.
That's true.
Like they can spit up damage. They can spit up damage all over the battlefield. Like Zagara and Nazeebo are fantastic at this, and so is Azmodan. But like they are not good at looking at a battle, seeing one specific hero that is at a quarter health, and saying, "Okay, well that hero is going to die." And that's kind of, I think of those as closing heroes, and I think most comps need to have a closing hero of some sort just to make sure that kills actually go off.
Just does some
really
straight
good
up
point.
damage. Straight up single target
Yep.
damage. Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So now that we have like kind of a framework of it, how do we like approach actually doing putting together a draft in Hero League or something like that? Do we look at how do we pick like our first bans and our first picks? We think of certain heroes as being better than others and prioritize that, or what? Mother Fox, why don't you start us off there?
Sure. Like, so when you're picking a hero first, or when pros pick heroes first, basically the most significant part of that is that you're reserving a hero for yourself that no one else can pick. And also, you're showing your hand really early. So your early picks need to be both things that you're really strong with, things that you don't necessarily want to deal with, but also like things that can't be countered easily. And that's the reason why Muradin and say Jaina are really good first picks in general, I think, because they're not easily countered by team compositions. Whereas if you pick Sergeant Hammer first pick for God, whatever reason, that's really
Do it.
you're just
And
gonna die.
the entire team just like picks like a gigantic dive comp and just kills them instantly.
Yeah, yeah. Or like this is why Cho'Gall first pick is really, really bad because he is a hero that gives away what your entire strategy is.
Right. What do you think about tier lists and how they relate to drafts, Valiver?
First of all, I think people put too much stock in them. They are important, but not like the end all be all. The fact is, each draft is different, and saying like Karazim and Uther are the best healers doesn't mean that they're always right for your team. So like, I mean, if you got Lost Vikings on your team or something, you don't want to pick Uther. You would want to pick Karazim or Rhaegar or somebody like that. So you have to like keep a balance there. And the other part of that tier list is sometimes people will be like, oh, well, Nova's terrible and we don't want her on our team and all that kind of thing because the tier list said that. And I mean, to be fair, Murloc geniuses are playing Nova and they're having some success. So like that's just bottom of the tier list. So I mean, I'm not saying that's right for all Hero League games, but I mean, you got to throw tier lists out the window sometimes. If you can innovate something and it works, then go for it. So
I think tier lists are more relevant at the start of the draft than the end of the draft.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
I think tier lists for somebody who is completely new going into Hero League, yeah, first lesson of tier lists, don't follow tier lists. You need to pay attention to what your team composition is before you start thinking about, okay, but this person's considered higher tier. When you get higher up and you kind of have a better idea of what heroes will synergize with other heroes and what your comfort picks are, and in general what you find you have difficulties playing against, then you can sort of bring the tier list back into it. But before that, don't even bother. Like, please do your team a favor. Don't look at tier lists. when they become relevant, which takes a while. I agree with what Mother Fox said in that it helps for like your first or second picks where you're looking for maybe an assassin that's like the most popular or considered the strongest at the moment. Outside of that, it depends what you guys want to play. It depends what you're comfortable with, and most heroes like can fit into a good composition regardless. So I don't put too much stock into your list myself.
I think one of the biggest problems that people run into also is if we're talking about just like the average player playing Heroes of the Storm, it's really obnoxious when you go into Hero League and say you're really good at something like Gazlo or Nova or something, or Sergeant Hammer, somebody who's like considered quote unquote bad, right?
Illidan.
And or Illidan, like say you're really good at those heroes, and you end up picking, kind of forcing yourself and your teammates kind of force you into picking something that you're not as comfortable with, just because that hero is quote unquote better, and that can be problematic, especially for lower ranks. I would say like anything really honestly below like rank 10, that can be problematic because you end up playing a lot of different heroes that you're not comfortable with, and it makes you not play as well in game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But on the flip side of that, though, you have to look at heroes like EGC, who a couple months ago, if you looked at tier lists, he would be considered probably one of the last tiers.
yeah.
People gave him no credit, and now he's at the top. And it's not because of changes necessarily, it's just the meta shifted and he became the it warrior. So that's kind of my counter argument. I mean, there's always going to be heroes like Gazlo who won't quite fit very well, but it's usually wrong. When you look at a tier list, you can go, yeah, these guys are powerful and agree on that, but the rest is usually wrong.
Right.
So just
Okay.
don't treat it like a Bible. Don't do
All
it.
right. The other thing I also want to talk about, and for first bans and first picks, so there's this term that gets thrown around a lot called respect bans. And what it basically means is that you know that the other team has a particular player that plays particularly well on a particular hero, and so you ban that one out of respect because you don't want to have to play against that. I know Veliver is really, really opinionated on this. I'm just gonna let you rant. Just go.
All right, I hate that term. Like straight up, I hate it because. All right, let's think about it. From the most recent obvious example for this is Murloc Geniuses taking Nova. Some teams started to ban Nova against Murloc Geniuses, but it's not because they respect that they can play Nova really well. It can also be that they haven't. When was the last time a pro team probably scrimmed against a team that got Nova? They don't have any practice against it. So, like, it's not just because, oh, this person's really good on this hero. It might be, but you can't say that for sure. And just because somebody is a good player or makes a good hero choice, just like there are other ways of countering that anyway. Like for instance, Cognitive used to play Illidan all the time. Like, and they would like ban Muradin. That's not a respect ban. It's just countering what they could do, and just I hate the term.
Yeah.
I think that the term makes sense, but it shouldn't be overused. There are times where it will be a respect ban. Like if there is a hero in the meta, I'm just going to throw this out here. There, no specific example whatsoever. I'm just using it. Kael'thas. Let's say they ban out Kael'thas, and there happens to be a player on the other team who says that their main is Kael'thas. That doesn't mean it's a respect ban. It could just be we don't like Kael'thas and we've got Jaina and we just don't want to deal with another mage. So they got rid of him. But casters will often use respect ban as a term anyway, and I don't know if that's them trying to bring the teams as like characters into the cast so that they've got that to draw on and can bring a little bit more, I don't want to say drama because that's the wrong word, but I guess a little bit more intrigue to the bands and go like, oh, look at the like personal connection, respect going on here.
They've obviously studied
it's
this
just a
player
bit-
a lot, and
yeah.
they know it's like they just don't
No,
want to play
Kael'thas is
against
just
Kael'thas.
Kael'thas. Nobody wants to play against him. And I do
mean-
agree that
You don't get first pick. They can't. They're gonna ban Killtoss. Okay, that's
Yeah.
how
When
it's
you-
gonna work.
When you say as many things as the casters say, eventually you just have to throw words out there just for the sake of throwing words out there.
it becomes verbal vomit, but in the
Right.
most eloquent way that you can possibly verbally vomit.
Yeah.
But I do agree that a lot of the times when the term respect ban is used, it's just a discomfort ban, which doesn't sound nearly as eloquent or respectful. So why would you say that? But I definitely agree that it's overused, but I do think that there are certain situations where it absolutely makes sense. Where it's
And-
someone that you typically wouldn't ban because you're kind of used to them in the meta, but at the same time, when you see a specific player, you know that that's not going to be something you want to play against, and you'll go, okay, I'll just get rid of it. So there are times where it's useful, but in general, I totally understand where that dislike of the term respect ban comes from, Oliver.
Gotcha.
Do casters ever use it to mean just they respect that particular character and not necessarily the player? Like how Cloud9 just banned Tyrael every game during BlizzCon because they didn't want to deal with sanctification?
I don't know. I
That's
think
called playing smart.
I think the point
Is
that we're
that-
trying to make is that term actually means nothing. So
Oh, I see.
To me, it means that it's a respect ban for a specific player. They're saying
Right.
that they respect that player's ability to play that hero or that team's ability to utilize that hero enough that they don't want to deal with it. It's not really, I respect the power of that hero enough. That's just going, okay, we think they're OP, we're banning them.
yeah, that's true.
Like, that's not a respect towards a player or anything. And there's got to be a certain respect towards the game to begin with if you're playing it. So, I mean, that's kind of a given.
All right, so once we get through the first stage of the draft, so once we get through the first picks, first bans, once we've kind of decided who's the scariest people, scariest bunch of the lot, what is the rest of the draft really about? Mother Fox, why don't you lead us on that?
Sure. So after the first picks have been done, which should be the most flexible picks that you can do possible, and which are hopefully picks that are not easily countered, like say Illidan. In the middle of the draft, your team should probably be trying to form out your overall strategy, whether that's picking things that combine well with those first picks or beginning to pick characters that counter the other team. Like if the other team does first pick Illidan, in the middle of the draft, you probably should be getting some hard CC and ways to kind of knock Illidan around so that the other team essentially only has 4 players. Yeah. And these terms are flexible, right? Like the beginning of the draft is either the first 1 or 2 picks, and the middle of the draft is the second, third, or fourth pick, probably, just to arbitrarily assign numbers.
Right. When I think of the rest of the draft, I think once you pick like your power picks, right? Once you pick, you get kind of the base of your composition going. Then you start trying to round it out with combos and stuff like that. So you may first pick Tyrande, for instance. After that, you kind of want something to combo with the Tyrande. If you want to do like a little roaming squad, you might pick up something like a Diablo or a Muradin to help you roam around with that. And then in return, like you also want to be thinking, all right, if we are getting this particular combo together, we're also going to be wanting to have strong lanes to go along with that. So you pick 3 decent laners to go along with that, right? So it's all this, like, to me, I kind of just think of it as slowly putting together like a puzzle, right? What do you think, Valiver?
First of all, like for the mid picks, I think completing your team is the most important thing. I don't think like if they've got an Illidan and a Muradin for some reason, like if you already have 2 warriors, don't pick Muradin. to counter Illidan. You want to complete your team
Oh,
first,
yeah.
worry about yourselves, and then counter the other team. Because if you've got a terrible composition, you've got a terrible composition. It doesn't matter what they have. So you want to just keep everything together. But the second thing is you want to make that pick with respect to what the other team has. So if they've got, like, say they have a Lily healer for some reason, like, grab a Sylvanas or something who can Wailing Arrow and, like, or a Zagara for Devouring Maul, something like that, to, like, counter the massive healing from that. Like, you need to make sure that you can't let that ult just go free and heal everything. So
Right.
you need to, if you can, get something that counters, but first, like, get what you need. So if you don't need more damage, don't pick that Zagara or Sylvanas there. You just gotta deal with the fact that they're gonna have that ult. If you can get somebody, like, if you still need a healer and you need to counter that ult, like, you need the healer first. So
Right.
Also, you want to leave it so that your last pick player has as much flexibility as possible. I think that's
Right.
pretty important, which is why, which goes with what Valiver's saying, because rounding out your team is a part of that.
Yeah. So once you start to like kind of get these combos together, and there's this whole mind game of like, I want to get this hero, but I also want to steal this combo from my opponent. We get into kind of the last like one or two picks, and that's really where we get to see, I think, a lot of compositions come really interesting, because we can see a lot of really interesting turns there and things that people are hiding, etc. Christine, why don't you explain this a little bit more?
So, just throwing this out there, if you are last pick on your team in Hero League, start out the draft by telling your team what your weakest role is. I will go into Hero League and immediately say, "Hi, I'm a terrible healer. You do not want me healing." Because that's my lowest win rate, and I know that that's my worst role. And that's important, because if you've got a team that actually wants to win or will pay attention, usually they'll be accommodating about it. But if you don't say anything, you're going to be stuck getting a
I'm a
healer.
jerk.
And
I just don't heal.
that is the most that is the most common pitfall in a Hero League, I find, is you see the other team and you go, I know if I pick Muradin, I could counter these two. But if you look at your own team, you'll notice that you have two tanks and two super squishy DPS, say a Falstad and a Kael'thas. You need something to heal them. So then you're torn between, okay, well, do I pick something that I know will actually contribute to my team, like, and help them stay alive? Or do I want to try to carry this and like counter the other team and be a badass all on my own? Don't do that, is my suggestion.
I think in League of Legends you can do that, but not in this game.
Anything can work.
Because team fights are just so important, and they're doing a good job of making it important for people to show up to objectives on most maps. So if your team needs something, if they need a tank, if they need a healer, be vocal about what you can play at the start of draft so you don't run into that problem. Sometimes you're going to get stuck with a role you don't want anyway. The other day, I played a game, and last pick decided that they just weren't going to pay attention and insta-locked our Tannis, and we had no healer, and we lost. To put a long story short, to prove Oliver right, we lost. And it wasn't a lack of skill. We spent the first half of the game absolutely dominating, but we couldn't close it out fast enough to compensate for the fact that we couldn't sustain in team fights at all. So as much as you might want to go, okay, this is a hero I'm good at and it'll counter the other team, double check your own team first. Make sure that your team is covered. Make sure that you've got everything you need. If you have the luxury to be versatile, like Mother Fox said, which, I mean, if you are in one of the mid picks, you want to try to leave that for your last player so they can do the whole, aha, I can counter the other team thing. If you're so lucky, still be smart about it. Still look and go, okay, is there any utility my team could use? Do we need more stuns? Do we need something like a Zagara ult? If the answer is no, do whatever you want. If there is something your team needs, play that. Play that role. Be a hero. Do the right thing.
Be a hero. I think for me, the last pick is the most exciting part of the drafting phase, because that's when we get to see fun little pocket picks and things like that come out. Personally, as someone who plays a lot of totally non-mainstream heroes, it's my best area to be last pick, because I am completely, absolutely horrible with like most big picks like Kilthos and Jaina and Muradin and stuff like that. I'm just bad with it. But I'm really good at things like the Lost Vikings, Illidan, Nova. I'm good at like those three. And those are just, they're horrible to pick at the beginning, but they're great to pick at the end. But I think what's interesting about that last pick is it allows you to do some pretty interesting things in terms of like swinging the composition one way or another. Because you may be building up an entire composition that's like, it looks like, oh, this is like going to be like a really tanky, like safe composition. And then all of a sudden, like you throw a Nova on at the end, and it completely throws off your opponent because they don't know what to do with that. Just, it's a completely different composition to deal with. Or like something is huge as like a Cho'Gall. Like that's obviously, you reveal a Cho'Gall in the last two picks, then it's like oh my god, this is like a completely different composition than anything else that could have existed before. That's how I see last picks. Oliver, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, the general overall strategy, is to get the healer out of the way towards the beginning, not necessarily first. I'm not saying that, just before the last pick. That way the last pick does have that flexibility of like picking Nova, Illidan, or Lost Vikings or something. You pick any of those first, they get countered into oblivion. It's going to be a miserable game. But if you leave it for last, then you get to be creative and you get to see everything else, and you get to pick that perfect character, the perfect hero to fit right in. And I think it is a lot of flexibility if you do it right.
And like on the note of what Oliver just said about like if you do it right, there are certain heroes that you're going to want to wait until the end, like Cho'Gall, to pick up. You might want to wait until the end to pick up one of your tanks if you don't find it that important. When it comes to your assassins, though, unless you don't have your heart set on anything, you usually want to pick up a tank first and then go into something like a Lunara or a Valor rather, or a Raynor. You want to get your assassins like that comboed, or at least in conjunction after you've secured something that can protect them. That way you know that they'll be safe. You don't want to leave them to last necessarily unless you're absolutely sure they're going to be available, or that the other team won't sort of already have it blocked up. But I personally find that having them be second pick over first pick is infinitely more valuable, because then you know that you've got that medic or you've got that Johanna to protect your Lunara, and you don't have to worry about them dying immediately.
Right. Other Fox, what do you think about these things?
I used to first pick things like Johanna in Hero League, and I'm not sure if Johanna is a great first pick. Mostly because Johanna's a very special kind of tank, and she's fantastic. Like, I have great results with her, but she does have some oddities that other tanks don't, like ETC and Muradin, where she can't like just jump into the fight, stuff like that.
She has to walk. Well, I mean, if you get fanaticism, right? Get fanaticism, and then she walks really fast into the fight.
Right.
It's like Thrall, man. Thrall just runs really fast into the fight.
Out. I don't necessarily mean it, but
yeah.
But
tanker. Yeah. I don't even remember what I was saying.
Don't first pick Johanna was what you were going with.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's a fine first pick, but she's not the best first pick, right?
She's
And
fine.
the other
but-
thing we should probably say is that, like, when you're playing in Hero League, anything works as a first pick, because if you pick a terrible character for first pick, like say Illidan or Sergeant Hammer, if the other team doesn't know how to draft, it could just be fine. And that's what you're gambling on, right? Like, you're saying, okay, well, I'm just hoping the other team has no idea what they're doing, and that everything will be decided in the game
Right.
instead of in the draft.
So in summation, I think we can all agree. So basically, you can kind of divide up the draft into 3 parts, right? You have your early phase, which is first pick spans. You typically want to pick power picks that are flexible. I mean, obviously, in Hero League, you can do practically anything and it'll work okay, but generally, you still want to have pretty flexible picks. And then the middle part of the draft is kind of rounding out compositions and getting combos, trying to steal things from your opponent. It's all about the mind games. And then the ending phase of the draft is typically where you're going to grab your last power picks and niche picks to kind of turn the composition into something dynamic and interesting. We all agree on that, more or less?
Yep.
Yep.
I think that I just want to emphasize though, like you can lose a game in draft. It is very easy to lose a game in draft. Don't lose in draft, because then you waste the next half hour in game trying to fight for that win.
Although, even if you do lose in draft, if the other team's terrible at actual execution, then you can still.
True.
Who knows?
All right.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask one more question before we go. So, when you guys think about this drafting, do the same kind of drafting rules apply to pro games, or is there's a much finer edge there? And does this change based on which region you're in, for instance? You guys think?
Yes.
Pro games get, yeah, yes is a. Pro
So
games
basically
don't
just
have to
yes.
draft their players in a specific order, so it's a much different dynamic than Hero League is. Yeah.
Okay. Valiver, any closing thoughts then?
Right before I get to that, I just want to say that I think communication in Hero League 1 drafting is the key. Like,
Yeah,
just
that's
before you get to anything else, if you don't communicate with anybody, you're just going to have some giant collaboration of random heroes that everybody thinks like, oh, I'm picking this one. And then just, you got to communicate. You got to let people know, especially if, like was said earlier, if you're the last pick and it doesn't look like your team's going to pick a healer, then you should say something. I just want to say that because that's really important. And I've seen a lot of teams get really mad at each other because, well, why didn't you say you sucked at healing? So that could all be avoided. But on the topic of pro drafting, I think it really is region dependent. Like back when Uther was like, and when Uther and Zeratul were like the number 1 and 2 heroes, it's like you would see those two like first picked all the time. And then like the second team would have the luxury of getting a healer as their last pick for free, whatever they wanted, just not Uther. And so like you got some weird situations like that. But in general, I think a lot of the time is one team will pick the healer first. They'll get the preference, and then the other team has the luxury of waiting, and they get to fill in like their tank first. So I think you just got to decide, is your healer more important or is their tank more important? And then the other team then just responds to that in kind.
Yeah. Right.
I think that when it comes to pro play, it definitely is different because you already have that communication and that knowledge of, okay, I know my teammates are good at X, Y, and Z heroes. That's where they excel. And you've practiced different compositions, so you know what to sort of aim for already. You don't have that problem where in Hero League it's like, I'm terrible at playing heroes that can clear waves. I'm terrible at healing. I can't tank. You don't have that problem because you have.
I hope it's not all 3 of those things.
If you have that
I
problem,
can tell you that.
Like I don't know if there's a hero in the game that does none of that.
Nova.
That's true. Okay, fair enough. That sounds like Christine.
But I think when it comes to pro play, that definitely makes a difference. I think also based on region, it does. Like you mentioned earlier, the Asian scene in general, especially China, but not specifically China, is a lot more focused on their tanks immediately. Whereas in North America, and still to a certain extent in Europe, we are seeing that assassins take priority. And that's why we've had discussions in the past about like Jaina versus Kael'thas.
Right.
Because even though they might both be played, it's a priority as to who picks who first. And that's where their sort of idea of what should be picked first comes into play. Whereas Asia still has the double and triple warrior meta, to not as crazily as they used to, but it's still there. So picking your warrior that's going to sort of be the foundation of your team is the most important. In Hero League, it's a bit of a crapshoot. It's like what you said before. You pick something that you're comfortable with, or something that like your team has communicated they can't really do, and go from there. So it is very different, I think, in Hero League than it is from Pro, insofar as familiarity and what you prioritize. And in Pro, it also does. It is really dependent on region as well at this point. So, yeah, pretty much all I had to say.
Fair enough. I think that pretty much covers everything that we had to talk about. That was so. I think the big point that we just want to get across is that there are a lot of different ways to draft, but there's still some strategies and ideas that you can come up with and ways that you can approach the draft to get the most out of it. And most important thing I think we went over and over and over about is just communicating with your team, making sure that everything's good. So that's going to be all for our episode this time. When is our next episode? It's on the 2nd of January. 2nd of January, so
Yes.
right after New Year's. Mother Fox is going to be in great
Happy
shape.
New Year.
I'm just kidding.
He's got a day to recover. Give him a break.
I have a long
that Diet
tradition
Coke.
of going to bed at like 10 p.m. on New Year's Eve. I'm a
You've got to honor that.
Yeah,
If
that's
it's a
right.
tradition, you've got to honor it.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. So our next episode is going to be on January 2nd. Don't know what the episode's going to be on yet, but there are no tournaments, so we're probably going to be talking about Towers of Doom. Most likely that's going to end up happening. So there's probably going to be a lot of salt, but it's going to be good.
I'm getting less salty about that now. I've come to terms with it.
Okay, fair enough.
Interesting.
All right. You guys have any closing words? Otherwise, we're ready to go. Oh, we're good? All right.
Good.
So you guys, thank you everyone for tuning in for the stream.
Merry
and
Christmas, Happy Holidays.
yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. The VOD will be up shortly.
That was.
Thank you so much for watching us. All right, we'll see you guys later. Bye.